Sherry Sporn. I was reading Mike Rinder's blog this morning, and at the end of it he asks, don't these people ever get sick of the demands for money? Don't these people ever wonder what happens to all the money they do give? That is my question. From what I've seen online, it seems like many of the public do get sick of it and try to fly under the radar by not attending events, giving as little as possible, etc. They either still believe in the tech or are trying not to be disconnected. But are there really people who do not know something is wrong based on the excessive regging? Or are only mildly annoyed but think it's okay and are still happy to pay for eternity? Well, I imagine within the world of Scientology, you're going to find a full spectrum of that, from, slavish, dedicated, fervent supporter that, believes that the church can do no wrong, over to people who are on the fence, under what we call under the radar, where they're not even really going into the church anymore. They're not, calling the church back when the church calls them. They don't go to events. They don't do services, but they still call themselves a Scientologist if fellow Scientologists ask them about it, because they don't want to get disconnected, or they still think that there's something valid to Scientology or to Hubbard and his tech, as they call it. But they don't really like what's going on with the church so much anymore. And you have a full spectrum there. And then, of course, if they go even further off the radar, under the radar, then they end up leaving the church altogether. And this just comes down to individual experience and education in Scientology, and a person's, people have different proclivities towards belief and towards fervor. Fervent belief in something, religious or not, and Scientologists are not really any different. So I couldn't really sit here and say, oh no, there's no, everybody in Scientology knows there's something wrong, because I don't think that's true. And this might be along the same lines as, it's an easy example to use, so I'll use it. I don't mean to I talk about Catholics, and, I'm pretty sure that a lot of Catholics are probably, with the constant news about, pedophiles in the church and amongst the priesthood, and how, exasperating and difficult and frustrating that can be to be a Catholic and be associated with a group like that. But I'm pretty sure amongst all those folks, you're going to find a similar range, a similar spectrum of people who, some of them are going to look at that and they're going to think that those practices, that the criminality and the really disgusting pedophilia that exists within the Catholic priesthood is a reflection on Catholicism itself, and that it shows that it's not a faith of honesty and compassion and care. Because how could you have its most dedicated members, the priesthood, doing this to sexually assaulting children? I mean, that's just crazy. So I'm sure there's some people who look at that and go, oh my God, and really end up in a crisis of faith. I'm sure there's other people who are Catholics who look at that but separate that bad behavior out from the church itself, and they go, well, there are these criminals who became priests, or they were priests and then they gave in to their darker, baser selves and went off the rails and committed these sins, and they were not, you could have all kinds of opinions about these guys, from the idea that they were never really priests to begin with, to they lost their way and gave in to sin, or whatever. Whatever else anybody might say about it. I'm sure there's lots and lots of ideas being expressed out there. I think you find the same thing in Scientology. I think you would find Scientologists who would look at the excessive salesmanship, what we call the regging, right? They're trying to register them for services. And they look at the high-pressure sales tactics, and they look at the disconnection and the shunning and the ethics actions that go on, and they go, well, that really sucks. I really hate all of that. It's because nobody enjoys it. I mean, I can definitely say that with some degree of certainty. I never met any Scientologist who enjoyed being sold Scientology, right? Everybody complains about it. But they look at that as a necessary evil. They look at it as something that's not the tech, the methods, and the actual dogma of Scientology. So they separate those things out. And that's, I think that's kind of how they rationalize it or justify it, because let's face it, as human beings, we can rationalize pretty much anything. We're very good at it. And there's lots of mechanisms going on up here to make that rationalization happen. When we believe in something, we can make anything make sense to hold on to or maintain those beliefs. So that's kind of what I think is going on there. And I think that it's only when the church turns on them personally, or they're somehow let down by the tech or by the church itself, not the abusive, kind of regging or even ethics that goes on. But that's not enough to turn them off. But if things get directed at them personally, or they have some big upset with it, and then they can start finding, then they allow themselves to be critical of the group and of the dogma itself, and then they can start stepping away for real and get all the way out. So I think that's kind of how that works.